Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Oh, my goodness. With my co-host, Lucky Stone, and our special guest, Grandpa Brian. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, as you know, Christmas is coming up, and we've been digging deep into these meanings of what's going on and why we celebrate it. And tonight we're going to dig deep into Jesus, Mary, and little baby Jesus, or Mary and Joseph. There isn't really, but speaking of Joseph, there isn't much on him. Nobody seems to know what he does, where he came from. There's conflicting stories. I researched this. There's everything from he's a carpenter to a stonemason. He's 17 or 18 years old to he's really, really old on his deathbed, kind of old. Mm-hmm. So what do you think, guys? We'll start out with Joseph and get him out of the way. What do you think of Joseph? What do you know about Joseph?
Who do you want to start?
Lucky, you can go right ahead.
From what I know from Joseph, he was from the line of David. So Jesus somehow became part of the line of David, King David, through Joseph, who isn't his biological father, and you only attain the royalty through genes. Mm-hmm. So that's a conflict. The carpenter thing actually is a translation issue, I believe, because there were no trees back then. There were trees, but there weren't enough trees for a carpenter to have a business. So being a stonemason or, being an architect to tell people how to do things made more sense. That's from what I read. And, besides that, I've also heard that he had a family before Mary, and that's where the brothers and sisters came from. Mary maintained her virginity, her sacred, her holy, her purity, through Jesus, and never knew Joseph. Mm-hmm. But then there's the other side where no. These were the brothers and sisters were Mary's. So I've heard both, and I've heard religious people speaking both emphatically. So no, I don't know who Joseph is. Than anything you said. It's all conflicting information.
It was so conflicting. Grandpa Brian, what do you know about this Joseph character?
I really don't know much about him. Coming from the Catholic background, they never really talked much about Joseph. You heard more about Mary. It was like they just inserted Joseph as a father figure to make it like a happy family. And, who knows, he may not have been there when Jesus was born. It could have been someone else.
Yeah. We're going to go with the kind of with the story narrative because, it could either exist. This could all be made up because none of it seems to fit together. You got to go by those, the four gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I think it was Matthew. I don't know. I'm going to guess here. I'm pretty sure it was Matthew that did the genealogy that led Joseph to be related to go back to David. See, mm-hmm. I think a lot of these gospels were written and put into the Bible so that you could be led to believe that these people had you. But really, so it doesn't matter. I think you're right. It doesn't matter if Joseph was related to that, to David, because he wouldn't have been the father anyway. He's just the adopted father, if that's the case.
But somehow they claim Jesus was descended to David, so maybe that was the way they could connect Jesus to David through Joseph, who very people knew much about. So maybe that was it. I don't know.
Yeah, but it would have had to been on the Mary side. Now, I haven't heard of genealogy of Mary because they never go by the woman's genealogy.
Well, although that's the weird thing about Judaism. Judaism, you're a Hebrew through your mother, because that was easiest to trace.
Mm.
That was one of the things that I read, that you're a Hebrew through your mother's, you're part of the religion through your mother, because at one point it was hard to figure out who fathers and mothers, and once you knew a woman, you were married. That was it.
Yeah.
Keep all to make sure that the children was taken care of. They didn't care about the woman. It was to make sure the children had someone supporting them.
Yep. And it's a lot of the translations, and we're going to get into translations in a few minutes, because this is all, it could be either way. Like I said, was Jesus, they kept calling him the son of a carpenter, which meant that Joseph would have been, if Joseph was a carpenter, then as his trade, then he would have been pretty wealthy. Just like you said, Grandpa Brian, at the, something about that. Well, you wouldn't have trees. So if you were a carpenter and you were working with wood, you would have to be wealthy to import the trees, the wood, because I'm sure there's rich people out there that like wooden stuff. It would be like, nowadays when you have to hire somebody to do masonry work, not everybody does that. Speaking of masonry work, we got slightly slanted sleuth Steve's in the house tonight. Musgrave Griffin, Scotty Boy, Nina the Mystic, Mary Wins, doubling up as Drumstead. So, and Big Justin, Lori Elderkin, thank you all for coming tonight. I'm sure there's a few more F Kitties in the house. Pamela Jean, they're all chiming in to see what good stuff we got tonight. Okay, so was Joseph young or was he old? That's my question.
I think he was old.
I agree with that.
I think he was an older gentleman.
Lucky?
I don't have a clue, honestly, because what I looked up, the J never existed. So the name that they translated from Joseph was very common. So the Joseph that they translated into the word Joseph, there were many people with that name. It was a common name, along with Mary, along with Jesus. They were very common names that they pulled out to say, okay, this was what meant Mary, this was meant Joseph, this is what meant Jesus. And it was very rampant. It was many people with that same. And so was he young? Was he old? He had to have had come from money. So, and they didn't talk much about either their family. It's just Mary was promised to Joseph. So I don't know. See, I don't know about the dowry back then either, whether, if Joseph was wealthy, then Mary would have been wealthy too, because usually the hoi polloi in the upper there wasn't much commingling. You kind of stayed in your lane, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I kind of get that. So, but see, and I look at these pictures, and I think the rendering of these pictures, I don't think nobody knows who he was. Here he's a young guy, and then these pictures, he's an old guy. According to the Gospels, Mary, a virgin betrothed to Joseph, conceived Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit. Therefore, Christians consider Jesus the Son of God. However, most Christians understand that Joseph to be a true father every way except biological, since Joseph was the legal father who raised Jesus. But look he's an old man. Old, I say.
But old. I believe they made him old so that they could give him children from a previous marriage.
Yes, and that's what I've researched too. He was married. Now we're going to go do the Mary thing, and so that brings you down to Mary. Like you said, was she wealthy or not? Now I did a little research on this, and I found that Mary was given up by her parents to like a church or something like that. And she was raised up until she was 12 years old. And at that point, what happens when you're about 12 years old?
You get married off.
Puberty.
Huh?
Well, puberty. You got puberty.
Yes, puberty. She's going to get her period. She wasn't, whatever. So it said that now they had to do something with her, and eventually it turned out that they consulted or whatever. But anyway, she was to be given an angel or something came by. I'm trying to remember how the story goes, but an angel came by, instructed him what to do, and said that they were to gather all of the older all the older men who have lost their wives, and they were to like pick a lottery kind of thing. And Joseph was one of those men, and he literally won the thing and was going to get with Mary, and he didn't want to do it because of the fact that he was older and Mary was this young girl, and he thought he'd be looked down upon. And they reassured him and said, listen, we were told this is what you got to do. If or you betray your God, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you got to do this. Well, then he says, okay. And he decides, well, all of a sudden he finds out that Mary is with child. And he says, okay, what do I can do several things. I guess there were some options at that time. You could, the woman, you could go to court with her and she could plead she was raped, or, or she was guilty, which of course probably would put her to death or something. Yeah. But, or he could divorce her. And, but yet he continued on, and he was, he decided to marry her anyway. And he was visited by an angel who said that, explained to him it was the child of the Holy Spirit of God, et cetera, told Joseph what to name the child, et cetera, as you can, the story. And that puts it all together. But my point is that, well, if the angel is telling you what to name the child, would it not be the angel's child? Could the angel be the conceiver of all of this? And was Joseph this young guy? No way. I don't think he was this young guy. I think he was an older guy. And then it boils down to, so we got all these pictures of, this is a European picture. If you look at it, this is a European picture. You got a stone building with wood. They didn't have wood. They didn't have a pine tree out back with a well made of wood. None of this is true. What do you say to that?
There's a lot. And now I'm thinking, that makes Jesus a Nephilim then.
Yes. Well, obviously, he was not. He was immaculately conceived, but does that not make him an alien or hybrid? And if so, throughout history, there has been things like this happen in other myths. But was this the myth that brought the two together so that people would tend to believe it, because it's the mixing of the supernatural with the human factor?
Well, it does go with a lot of the stories. Egypt, you got Horus, because that's the whole story. Greece, you had all the Zeus's children, and of course Rome, you had Dionysus. I mean, there's a lot of connection between Jesus and a lot of the religions, making him, half God. So that's what made him legitimate. So there's a lot to it. You are, and you'll pull some of the things out of your pocket that I had never heard.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, just Mary being part of a lottery, and Joseph, being an old man who was pulled into the lottery because he lost his wife. And I've never heard that story, and or if I had, I forgot it, which is another thing. There's so much side stories that it's hard to follow.
Well, I'll have to send you that information later when after we get done with the show, so you can listen to yourself. Yes, slightly Santa Sleuth, he's right on top of things. He says this. Come on, why is this going on? Where'd it go? Oh, he says it's to convey come on. Thing ain't working today. It's a story conveying a deeper meaning through physical mind. All things in the Bible are of this nature. He is exactly right. The story was put there to convey things in your mind. It's like, I don't want to say brainwashing, but it's a kind of a hypnotism. Grandpa Brian, what do you think of that? What we're out of all this discussion? Now, you were in the church and going in for many years probably, and learned all this stuff as a young kid. What do you make of
that? What I made of it then and what I make of it now are two totally different things. I do believe Lucky's read this book, Caesar's Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you how the Gospels were written. So to get to the end scenario of the crucifixion, you had to start with this story. It just couldn't be a being here and then get crucified. You had to have a birth. You had to go through the process all the way to this crucifixion. So it's just a story to fit the scenario of what they wanted at the end, which was the crucifixion of God dying for our sins. So you had to start this scenario, and the best way to do it, a virgin given a baby by God. And this is God's son to be sacrificed later on down the road. So it's all a scenario, it's all a story.
Well, yeah, you have to put some, I think what it is you have to put some context, like you said, to the whole thing. You just can't show up one day and say, I'm here. Well, what people are going to ask, what's the backstory? And that's why they give the thing of the birth and stuff. And not all of the Gospels talk about it. There's only a couple of them. And one of them refers to the other one. It's like they're piggybacking off of each other in ways, saying, well, and they piggyback. And it's like, okay, it's like saying, I know everything there is to know about Jesus and Mary and Joseph and all of God's works because I've read the Bible, and I can refer to the Bible for any questions and answers, that you have. But I'm going to double ask you and say, well, don't you have any other sources? Is there any other source you can quote besides the Bible? And that's what they're doing. They're just quoting themselves, and not to say there's anything bad about it, but it's okay. So anyway, we're going to go on with Mary. We've been on this Joseph thing for a bit, and Joseph goes nowhere. There's old man, he's dying. Look at Mary, never aged a day. Jesus got hold of Joseph's dying. How come he didn't bring him back from the dead? I don't know. And as you go on, these are renderings of artists who want you to believe who Joseph was. Young, old, little baby there. He looks old, and little baby Jesus is a young baby, Here look at this guy, looks like a young guy. Holy cow. Look at this. Mother Mary, oh boy, she's a good looking woman there, she looks but she looks a little bit older in this picture than 16, doesn't she? And they always put him with this heart. What is up with the heart? I don't get it. Maybe you guys know. I don't understand.
That's the Sacred Heart. The Sacred Heart of Mother Mary.
Yeah. Okay. So now, Yes, I heard that, but I don't understand it. Sacred Heart, but Jesus has the Sacred Heart too. But when I did the research on this, you know, it seems like Mary didn't come. Mary was either Marian or Marion. It wouldn't have been Mary, I guess. It could have been all three of those names, but during translation, things changed. She did not come into the, believe it or not, she did not come into the picture because there's really little of anything mentioned in the Bible till the 4th century. And during the 4th century, they started making pictures of her, and she was promoted during when the Romans had the Catholic thing of Nicaea, when they put the whole Bible thing together. That's when they said, hey, there's a mother here. There's Mary. You got to start, doing the Mary thing. Because before that, she wasn't even a blip on the radar screen. So I think you're right about they had to have a birth. They had to have a mother. They were putting a storybook together. And when they were doing this, they had to have pieces because people would start asking questions. I don't know. When Mary,
there's a lot that I had read previously that said that that Mary Magdalene, who followed Jesus and some believe might have been married to Jesus.
Yep.
Then there were other Marys, which was, I believe there was a Mary, the guy who was resurrected,
Lazarus.
There was one of Lazarus' sisters was named Mary, and then of course there was his mother named Mary. And someone had said at one point that maybe Mary, the sacred Mary that we pray to, the Catholics pray to, is not Mary the mother, but Mary Jesus' wife, because still today Catholic husbands call their wives mother. And it was the most thing that blew my mind. It's like, was the reason why Italians call their wives mother because Jesus, Mary, mother of God, was actually the wife of Jesus, which is a whole other rabbit trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart. Oh yeah, the Sacred Heart is something that was the name of the church, my Catholic church that I went to, till I was 20 something, was a Sacred Heart church.
Oh yeah.
And it was a big thing with Sacred Hearts everywhere. Mary, I don't remember one on Joseph though, but there was only one statue of Joseph. There were statues of all those saints and everything, but only one of Joseph, and it was small in the corner and only brought in during Christmas.
That's right, because Joseph was a blip on the screen. They had to have a father figure because they couldn't say that Mary was just this unwed mother who just popped out a child and immaculately conceived of it. They needed some kind of father figure there. But see, and you're right, 20%, over 4,000 churches are named, Roman Catholic churches are named after the Mother Mary. Believe it or not. Let's see. So when Mary was young, 12 was considered to start being mature, 12 and up. It's the meeting. Mary is the conduit. She is the meeting of God with the human and the blending of that. Like you said, that's making God human so people can relate. They can put that guy up on a stick and say, yep, there he is. That's my God. But which still doesn't make any sense. Think out of the box, people. If he was a God, then why would he let him do that to him? And then he came back, but he's not here today. He went up into heaven and he's gone. Like, okay, well, that leaves a lot of questions to be answered too. Okay, Mary met with the angel Gabriel. And he told her what was going on and that she had been chosen and so forth and so on, and she was going to have a kid. she'll be conceived by the Holy Spirit. My question is, yeah, there she is. Now in this picture, she's not wearing the blue robe, and she's carrying a chicken while she's pregnant. What's up with that?
I have never seen a pregnant Mary statue in my whole life.
Neither have I.
Well, there you
That
go.
is interesting.
Pregnant Mary.
I've
Only
seen
here.
images of her on the donkey, which, going back to Joseph, he led that donkey from outside Israel all the way to Egypt, I believe, right? So,
Mhm.
or whatever. They had a long trip, and
Yep.
Joseph walked the donkey with Mary on the back. So if he was an old man, that was a tough trip. So that's another thing,
Yep.
Maybe he died after Jesus' birth because he was so exhausted. We don't
Yeah.
know what happened to
So
him because maybe just,
let's see. Where here's Jerusalem, Bethlehem. We're looking for Bethlehem here. I'll find it here in a second.
Bethlehem and Nazareth, and then he
Yeah.
went to Egypt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of traveling for an old man.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's here somewhere. I seen it the other day. That's why I pulled it up, but I'm like, I know it's on here.
I know you had it last week, but
it's
so
hidden.
much.
But it's hidden here. I'll find it. But
I
anyway,
see Bethlehem, but I do not see.
You see Bethlehem?
Yeah, it's right under Jerusalem.
Oh, there it is. Big dot, big red.
Yeah,
Duh.
yeah.
Oh boy, am I silly. But anyway, here's the point. They're traveling here. Now I researched this back in the day when Joseph and Mary would have been traveling to Bethlehem. The town was a city of maybe, they said, maybe between 500 and 1,000 people. That's not a very big city. But when they said they were looking to stay at the inn, here comes the broken translation. Now, obviously, they said that, Joseph would have been going there because he was born there, or he had a register there because that was his hometown, and that he would have had relatives there. Now, the translation saying, meaning that they were trying to find a room at the inn, would have been translated also as trying to find a guest room probably with family members. And they probably went from family member to family member trying to find a guest room that they could inhabit while they were in town. And finally, they did find a place. And when, well, if the things are always the same as they're talking about, is the animals would have been downstairs in the cave-like area, or the underneath of the house, and the people would have been upstairs. Now Mary would have been having a child, and in not to bother everybody upstairs, she would have been put downstairs so that they wouldn't be bothered because the house was full. So meanings of translations have, come to pass again. Right? But anyway, that's what I'm trying to say is all these translations are just, they mean different things, and we take it, as, oh yeah, they couldn't find any room at the inn. Well, what are you going to do? Take your pregnant wife to the inn, like the bar, or why didn't they say hotel? Or, so there's a lot of things like that we just don't understand.
Well, there's also when Mary met John the Baptist's mother, the babies kicked inside their stomachs like they knew each other, like they had a connection. But, this is all very sad, supposedly, they were both sacred people, but somehow they went to the lowest rung and had to sleep with the animals. And back then, a lot of times birth was a fatal thing for women. A lot of women didn't survive it. So just go with the animals, you're going to die. And that's so foreign to me. You figure they would do something to make sure that she was safe rather than throwing over the animals. So there's strange thing to the story. Although there's the side where he was born in a manger where the animals eat because he was the food for, the disciples or something like that. That's another bizarre one that's just recently come to my recollection.
Yeah, and he was born in Bethlehem, which is the
Bread.
house of bread. Yeah, and I mean, all of this is just way too symbolic to just throw to the side and say there's no connection with this. Nobody thought it just happened to happen. No, people, this is happening and put together. It's too good that so you got the animals, and then the wise men just happen to show up. Did they show up that night or next day or what? I mean, and I think it's all of it, like Steve had said earlier, is a symbolism. He's at the bottom of the rung here. He's just like you and me. Heck, he's even worse. He's trailer trash, Jesus. He's way at the bottom. He's trying to symbolize, even if Joseph's a carpenter, which would then make him a rich man, that he's being born in a stable around a bunch of critters in a cave, whatever. Make it really bad. The only thing that could be worse is there was a flood and they had to swim for their lives. Or something crazy.
Yeah.
So do you know what's missing in that picture?
Oh, what? The camels.
Well, no, you have Mary, Joseph, and the three wise men. There's no midwife there when she gave birth.
Oh, yeah.
Guys do not know how to deliver a baby. That's why they always had a midwife there to help with the labor. That's the one thing you don't see in any nativity scene is a midwife to help her give birth.
That's right. You don't hear about it in any Jesus story either. Like, who is the midwife there helping?
Correct.
Yeah, what? That the midwife got just, demoted and kicked right out. Or she just had such an easy birth that she just laid down, popped the baby out, and call it a day.
Yeah. So I also heard that the three wise men were actually Buddhist monks there to get Jesus because they were told that he was Buddha reincarnated. That could be the story of why you don't hear about Jesus from the time he was born to 22 to 25, because he was probably studying under the Buddhist monks, which if you really look at his teachings, it kind of falls along the line of Buddhism.
Yes, it does. He a lot of the stuff he says is, at least in the book, in the Bible, is very very close. I mean, within a few.
Correct.
If you said it and said Buddha said it, nobody would pretty much know the difference.
Correct.
And of course, he's been westernized because he's moving north. The north braced him quite a bit. And here's your northern version of Jesus. For the Europeans, blue eyes, brown hair, beard, mustache, all that good stuff, chiseled jaw, and now you're getting back in time a little bit. He's got dark hair now, short dark hair, beard and mustache. And then here you get back in a little more time. You're pushing it here. You're pushing it. And this is probably what he really looked like. And this is the picture that everybody has on their wall. Now, if you put this on their wall, people might not be so inclined to look at that one, will they?
Well, what color of skin did Jesus have? Because in the north, we portray him as a white guy.
Uh-huh.
And how many white people were in Bethlehem, Israel, and all that at that time, besides not counting the can't believe I'm brain farting, the Italians.
Yeah, well, and even so, he wouldn't have been a white dude. He would have been like this, a little more tanned, probably olive-colored skin, I would say.
Yes.
if not black almost. I mean, darker black. I would assume. I'm sure he didn't have pale white skin and blue eyes.
Correct. he probably had brown eyes and darker complexion skin.
Yeah, like this dude here with the shorter hair, dark hair. It looks like one of the people you see nowadays. But this is the picture that we portray. Of him. Oh, look at that. Because that's how you get people to follow him. He looks like Joe Blow down the street, only he's probably better looking. So there you go. Oh yeah, I can pray to that guy, right?
Yeah, that is basically the Europeans' perception of what they think that Jesus would look like.
Absolutely. Just like the baby Jesus. Here, I got this picture because he's got that pale white skin all the way going down, not just on the face, people. And even the baby Jesus, pale white skin, like.
Well, that baby has blonde hair. I don't know how many Hebrews had blonde hair.
Yeah, there you go.
Correct.
Like I said, it's all perception to get you to follow. Here's another baby Jesus in the manger with the hay, and that's not the kind of manger you'd be getting. Another blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby Jesus for you. No, I don't think so. Could be a Gerber baby there. Only a little longer hair. Okay, here you go. Another baby Jesus. Blue eyes, blonde hair, light brown hair. Mother Mary looking over him. I don't see her eyes. I can't tell you if she's got blue eyes too. But, all these renderings are, look at that. Here's baby blonde, blue, baby Jesus. And oh, come on, get off of there.
Well, I'm sure most of these paintings were done by Europeans or Americans.
Yeah, exactly. But that kind of stuff just leads us astray, because, and look at this one. Look at baby Jesus, got long hair like a hippie. And Joseph looks more like Jesus. You sure he wasn't the father, the real father, But look at how long the baby's hair is. When do babies come out and have hair that long?
I have no idea.
Ladies, speak up now. Speak up now. Let me know. How many babies have you had that have had long hair down past their shoulders? Look at that. He's got long ass hair. Mary's going, we got to take him to the barber and get his hair cut. I'm surprised he ain't growing a beard. He probably came out walking and talking too. He's a pretty big kid. Considering Mary was supposed to be like 16 years old, she'd be pushing out a 20-pounder. I hate to make fun of it, but come on, people. I know you ladies, the ones that had, you push out a kid this large, you'd be hurt. You won't be making it through that childbirth. Anyway, there you go. Stable boy, I don't know, three wise men. I don't. There's a good depiction of Joseph. Look at him. He's old. He's bald on this one. Joseph's even got a cane. He's so old.
But if that's Mary, she's awful old too.
Yeah, she looks.
Yeah.
She's looking pretty old.
No, I guess no. I guess it's if you look closer, it just from far away, it looks. She doesn't look like she's in her teens at all. She looks well into her 20s. So,
yeah.
Oh well.
Steve Bow has a question. Did we get the answer on Joseph's question? What's his real name? If there's no J, yes, that's a good question because nobody seems to know.
It was the Y. The Y replaced the J, so it was Joseph.
Joseph. There you go. Good one. Yeah, I got the smartest co-host there is known.
The Y was not a vowel; it was more of a consonant. unfortunately, that's the information that I was able to get. Whether it's correct or not, there's conflicting information constantly. So you look up, oh, I understand now. Then you look something else, like, wait a second, this contradicted that, but not entirely, just mostly. And then you find it's the information from the Bible being traced to other historical documents, Rome, Greek. It's hard to connect things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. This even before, but I was listening to this one guy. He was talking about the story and the Gospels and all this writings and everything. And he says before the Council of Nicaea and stuff, or actually even before that, because all of these scripts or all these books were copies of copies of copies of copies before they finally said, we're going to put this down in print and stop the copying. How many times did it get changed before that? And that's one of the biggest questions, because it's, I mean, I write it down today. Tomorrow you go and correct all my literally, wording mistakes. And then next year, words change and somebody corrects it. And 300 years later, after like the 20th or 30th copy, how much do you think is going to get changed?
It's a great question, because they transmitted Aramaic into Greek, Aramaic in Hebrew into Greek, and then Greek into Latin, and then Latin over and over and over again. So each time they copied it, the guy was the transcriber, the scriber might have said, oh, I'm going to fix this. So who the heck knows what we get from the final Bible? It only takes a couple of scribes to change a couple of words here and there to have a whole different meaning.
Yes,
right.
Yes. One letter in a word can make a different meaning.
Right. It's like doing a 10-person story. You start a story with one person, and it goes around 9 other people. And when it comes back to you, that story is different from when you originally told that first person.
Yes, exactly. And we're talking over hundreds of years. And because we don't even know when the Jesus baby was actually born. I mean, was he, but we tend to believe that he was born, and that's why we have BC and before, and then an AD, but really he was probably born in BC. And it was hundreds and hundreds of years later that they finally stopped and wrote it down and put it in a book and said, we're not going to change any words anymore. Let's stop here before the meaning is really, really gone. But we know from history, or at least in our time, and we were talking a little bit about this before the show, how much has changed in our own lifetimes. Well, can you imagine how much is going to change, or we can, in 300 years? I mean, our conversations that are being recorded on this show, and if it survives for 300 years, they'll be looking at this and saying, I don't understand anything they're talking about. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean, also, cursive is going out. Since cursive is going out, they won't be able to read the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. I have heard they stopped teaching cursive.
Yes. I mean, well, exactly. But just think back, 250 years when they wrote the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. I don't know. You guys have probably read that, and I know it's a legal document. But when you read that, holy cow! Can you even comprehend what it's saying? It's really difficult to read, and like you said, it's in cursive, and things have changed. To this day, we're still trying to figure out, did they mean to keep does that mean freedom of speech and keep arms to defend ourselves, or just for deer hunting? We're still trying to figure that out because
I don't see that. I don't think it is that complicated at all. I think the government makes it sound complicated. I think they wrote it pretty simple. I think they made it simple so we could understand till now. It's just the legalese. They infer more into it than there really is. Like
yep,
freedom of religion is not freedom from religion. It's freedom for everyone to practice their religion, but not hurting anybody. That's simple. But
mm-hmm.
and that's the problem. You're right. I don't think it's the cursive itself. I don't think it's the wording itself. I think it's the people who want to put more meaning into it and put their own perception into it is the problem. I think it's government, period. But
Yeah. Yes, I think it is government. Now we got this here. Nimrod. Now we brought this up a little bit last week. Nimrod's birthday was celebrated on the 25th. From absolute divinity, now her son has been taken, left the moon, and she becomes a wife and a mother. Samatras and Nimrod, and they created a son, Tammuz. The new god is born, the mother falls. Okay. And Pamela Jean says, who was Nimrod? Okay, Nimrod was the guy who started building the Tower of Babel. That's what he's known for. The Tower of Babel. And why is this important? Because, during the Tower of Babel, Nimrod was a powerful leader, and all the people spoke the same language. And they were thinking they were going to be above God, and they were, going to build this tower up to heaven and so forth and so on. And if you don't believe me, go read the story. But the point is he lived a long time ago. He was a powerful being. We don't know exactly when he lived. Could have been thousands of years ago.
No, that's a funny thing, though. Nimrod was a genius. Nimrod was a intellectual giant of a man. But the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny cartoons turned Nimrod into an idiot. We now think of Nimrod as don't be a Nimrod, that means an idiot. But it didn't mean that. It was sarcasm.
Yes.
Sarcasm. I said it wrong, but it doesn't matter. So even that is changed over the course of a couple of generations. Our grandparents' time, Nimrod meant idiot because of was doing sarcasm. But before that, Nimrod was a genius, intellectual superior to everyone else.
Yeah.
Wasn't Nimrod the leader of the Nephilim?
No, he was not the leader in the Nephilim. I think I got a thing in here talks about Nimrod. Yes. What does the Bible say about Nimrod? Two key figures in the origin of Christmas are Nimrod. Wow, how does Nimrod get into the Christmas? A great grandson of Noah and his mother and wife, Samatras, also known as Ishtar. Where'd that come from? Oh my God, and Isis. Isis? Did you say Isis? Oh, well, what does Isis look like? Guys, look at this. Does she not look like kind of like Mary in the blue? Come on now. There's a story being put together here. Okay. Nimrod, known in Egypt as Osiris, was the founder of the first world empire at Babel, later known as Babylon. From ancient sources such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and records unearthed by archaeologists from long-ruined Mesopotamian and Egyptian cities, we can construct subsequent events. After Nimrod's death in 2167 BC, Samatras promoted the belief that he was a god. She claimed that she saw a full-grown evergreen tree, oh my God, the Christmas tree, spring out of the roots of a dead tree stump, symbolizing the springing forth of new life for Nimrod. On the anniversary of his birth, she said Nimrod would visit the evergreen tree and leave gifts under it. His birthday fell on the winter solstice at the end of December. Does that not Chris, an evergreen? Presents underneath? Come on. A few years later, Sumatra's Boris' son, Horus, oh, we know about Horus, or Gilgamesh, she declared that she had been visited by the spirit of Nimrod, who left her pregnant with the boy. Horus, she maintained, was Nimrod's reincarnated, with a father, mother, and son defined, um, the deceptive and perverted trinity. And there you go. You got to have that trinity. The trinity was formed. Sumatras and Horus were worshipped as Madonna and Child. As generations passed, they were worshipped under other names in different countries and languages. Many of these are recognizable. Fortuna and Jupiter in Rome, Aphrodite and Adonis in Greece, Ashtoreth and Ashtar and Molech, Bala in Canaan. During the time between Babel and Christ, pagans developed the belief that the days grew shorter in early winter because their sun god was leaving them. When they saw the length of the day increasing, they celebrated by righteous, unrestrained feasting and orgies. Oh boy, orgies. This celebration, known as Saturnalia, was named after Saturn, another name for Nimrod. So, lots of names, lots of translations. Go figure, people. Look at that. And so, where did this all come from? I do not know, but I think instead of these other ones, I think they just changed the names from, you got Isis, and she is, giving birth to Horus, which could possibly be, this here same scenario. Gee whiz, Popeye. I mean, when you start putting these things together, what do you guys think? Is there something to this, or am I just barking up a wrong tree?
So what I think it is actually talking about there when it's saying the presence underneath the pine tree, that was probably written by a European, and what they are talking about is this red and white mushroom that grows underneath pine trees over in Europe, and it's a hallucinogenic mushroom. And if you look at their earliest Christmas cards, it had these mushrooms on there. That is where they got the Santa Claus story from.
Yeah, those mushrooms are also where I live. They got transported over here. They're very scary, toxic, blah blah blah. But they are very hallucinogenic if with the right hands and the right person. I've never touched them because it takes an expert. And if you feed it to a deer and use their urine, that the deer will take the toxins out of them and make them really high if you drink the deer urine.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna catch deer, let them eat mushrooms, and then drink their urine. That sounds fun, Lucky. I think we're on board.
Yes, it does. Hey, we're on to something here.
Hypothetically, I heard it from someone, and as I was looking at this strange red-capped, white-spotted mushroom, and I was talking to someone about it, and he was talking about someone who had a pet deer, which was highly illegal in of itself.
Yeah.
But they were harvesting the urine from the deer, which used to be reindeer, which is another story. But here we don't have reindeer, but we do have deer, which are actually easy to partially domesticate. They're actually pretty.
Yep.
They're pretty docile animals.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is so you got, but it could be like that coffee. Isn't there that coffee where the monkeys eat the coffee beans and they shit them out?
It's a weasel. It's called a civet cat. You harvest their poop, and it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine who actually bought some of that coffee. It was very expensive, and he was a coffee connoisseur, and he said to me, "This tastes like excrement. I'll be. This tastes like excrement. It's not that. This is. I paid so much for this, and him and I had coffee. Let's say in Canada, we had coffee from Cuba, which was phenomenal. It was the best coffee I've ever had. Coffee from Cuba is phenomenal, but it's highly illegal in this country because we're so backwards. We're so mad at Cuba, which is another story of itself. I've gone on a tangent. This is about Christmas, but again, our government really is screwed up. We really should just trade with Cuba. Said, okay, all is forgiven. Be our friend.
Yeah. They're just poor people. It's the governments that are fighting, not the people.
Unbelievable.
I think the people probably are really nice. They're just trapped in a bad position. Anyway. Okay, back winter solstice and the ancient Egyptian origins of Christmas. And here we go on the 21st of the day of the solstice, which is coming right up. In case you're not hip to what winter solstice is, it's an ancient 2-week celebration of life through the rebirth of the sun. It lasts about 12 days, includes solar observation, cultural festivals, and spiritual growth. At least that's how the ancients observed it. The solstice, which stems from the Latin word solstium, I don't know, represents the annual period of the year when the sun reaches its lowest point before the rising again and prepare for the summer months. In the southern hemisphere, Africa, where our ancestors are from, our process begins around June 21st. But here in the northern hemisphere, the Americas, where we are now, it starts today. It lasts from the 21st to the 24th, including totaling 3 full days. Well, that means that on the 25th, the sun starts to be longer, and that means it's the sun's day because the sun is reborn. Ta-da! And so you have Christmas. The sun is born.
Yeah, I kind of look at it differently. Lucky put out a video earlier and asked if they should change the day to Christmas. And I put in his comment, they should move Christmas to where Easter is and Easter to where Christmas is. Because if you look at the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, that's where the rebirth comes because that's when everything starts growing. Where the winter solstice is basically the death of all plants. The last part of the plants die before they wait for that rebirth in March.
Yes,
but you have the solstice on the 21st. The sun stays in the same spot in the horizon for 3 days before it starts ascending back across the sky. So you have to look at the 3 days. They said Jesus laid in rest before he was resurrected again. They could have been talking about the sun and the winter solstice, the 3 days before the sun starts traveling back up through the heavens, back over to the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, but I beg to differ. I beg to differ. See, that's the point. It's so messed up. You're right, but you're wrong, and at the same time, because in the winter here, the sun is dying. That's what they're saying. The sun dies, and it's at its lowest point for 3 days. It's dead. Now, but then the sun is born. The sun is born again, and it starts to rise. And so we celebrate the birth of the sun from darkness. Now, during Easter, we're celebrating new life, the beginning, because it's in the Christian thing, Jesus is dying and then is being reborn, or being going to, he's leaving the body, and things start to, it's the new life coming out, new life in the spring, the sun being born in the winter, or for the new year. So really, we should be celebrating New Year's on the 25th because it's a new year. Don't you think?
No, we should put New Year's on March 1st because October is 8, November is 9 and December is 10. It should be the 10th month, and January and February should be 11 and 12. Our calendar's messed up.
Correct.
We should rename those dates. We should
I kind of agree with that.
So, I mean, yes, New Year's Day is another screwed up thing. I mean, having Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's so close together, it should just spread it out, because winter's a sad time.
It
We
is.
should have more celebrations, because I don't think Christmas shouldn't be gift giving. It should be celebration with, like Thanksgiving. Same with New Year's. It should be we get together and have fun and party, great. But mostly it's about hanging out with friends and family. So these
Correct.
3 dates are great, but they're scrunched together so much that you get sick of it and you don't want to be with these people anymore. But if we did it once a month for winter, it'd make things so much nicer.
Yep. I agree. I think the calendar is screwed up, but then of course the Romans did that. So, and we've been going by that ever since. From celebrating nature to saviors, another important staple of winter solstice takes on place on December 25th. This is the day that the sun would rise again after being invisible, or at its lowest point for 3 days. The ancients considered it to be the rebirth. They deemed, because they are our ancestors, 25th of December as the birthday of the sun. But over time, certain sects of the Egyptians began associating the sun with the Messiah-like figures from their mythologies. Go figure that too. Let's put a god label on it, right? This led to the folklore of Hera, the first Christ, which started out to be the myth to explain what was happening in the celestial realm. And of course, just like it all has to do with the moon, sun, and stars being transformed in a religious dogma that's replaced the sun with a savior. Huron was then defined as the son of Ra. An ancient Egyptian, Ra was a god, and the sun was his face. So Hura became the invisible or the visible representation of Ra. You got to make that God human, people. The Son of God. And the festivals that took place before and after December 25th were then transformed into customs that paid homage to Huron. But see, and this is the thing, is we just go over and over and over. It talks about here there were over 10 different saviors around the world with background of having 12 disciples being born on December 25th and performing miracles. These various cultures were also celebrated during the winter solstice of the Savior. Come on, people. So, like I said, this stuff is here and it just keeps rotating. When Christianity fades out and dies, they will pick up and put something new in its place and just label it with different labels and put it at the same times, and everybody will be happy. So just sit back, people, get in your easy chair, pick up your sweet roll and a cup of coffee, and enjoy the ride for the next 1,000 years, and we'll have a new religion. Or maybe less. Who knows?
Well, the 12 disciples goes with the lunar calendar, which we should have 13 months with the lunar calendar. I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
It gets very confusing at that, but yeah, we should be 13, and it gets very convoluted when you get the 13 celestial, zodiac, and we really don't even know anything now. Everything is so messed up. But the more you learn, the more confusing you become.
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, this is nothing new. It's just been copied over and over and over and over again. Let's use the same dates, and just put different labels on it. Change Hearer's name to Jesus, and we'll have this, instead of the SUN God, we'll have the SON God, and we'll name these names. I will just. I'd like to get somebody that would get ChatGPT, program it in there, change all the names, and tell ChatGPT to write a new book about the same subject. Let's see what happens. Here, Musgrave Griffin, Jeannie says the Gaelic use the Tress in astronomy for their calendar, and the Gaelic calendar is 13 months. Go figure. Somebody put science to the seasons and days, and look at what they came up with, a 13-month calendar. Yeah, so there you go. I think it's all craziness. Here's ISIS, look at that. And with the blue people,
there's ISIS right there too.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, I'm just saying is that when you put it all together.
Oh, she's got a cross too. If you look, she's got a cross. Oh. She's holding a cross.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Put it
no, just I'm messing around. Honestly, the Ankh is actually, it's a cross. That's one of the things is that they think may have influenced the idea of using the cross as a symbol.
Yeah.
That they had to associate Jesus with the cross, so they made him crucified, because the crucifixion was totally different than being on two sticks. It was actually much more X-shaped rather than T-shaped. So they had to associate, and they had to use the Ankh. They want to use the Ankh, so without the handle.
And looking, instead of putting a big halo over her head, they put a halo on top of her head.
Yeah, that's.
But like I said, there's a lot of symbolism that goes on here.
There's so much. There's so much symbolism. It's amazing.
Instead of him carrying a shepherd's staff, and things like that, they carry these other staffs. I mean, it's always something, that's but it's always the same, giving the wings, power of flight, going up into the heavens, heavenly being. If you got wings, you're above everybody else. It's just all of that kind of stuff. But that's what all the pictures I got. Sorry, everybody. I run out. But that's the whole point. It's just all this stuff is recycled. Is somebody wrote down a new story, flip the pages, put it together, and there you go. Start a new religion, because obviously Jesus was not Catholic. He was Jewish. Do you think did he come up with a thing that said, I want to be Catholic? I want to be Christian. If you're not Christian, you're not with me, are you? There was no sayings like that. At least that I don't remember.
Well, Jesus hung around with lepers and fishermen and shepherds and the prostitutes, the people who were thrown out of society. And when Jesus went to the temple, he saw the moneylenders and he whipped them and he turned the tables over and he says, not in my Father's house. So everything Jesus did back then, if he saw the churches that represent him now, he would be very sad.
Yes.
Or angry. Most likely, I'd rather him be sad, because if he was angry, he would just destroy everything. He would smash the windows, those beautiful ornate windows. He would smash them and say, "This is not my house." But that's what we do. If you look at the teachings of Jesus, it's just be good to each other, be good to your brother, be good to yourselves, and and be nice and take care of those in need. So simple.
Yeah, I think in some ways Jesus leaned a little bit on socialism by, he wanted everybody to be equal. Everybody can rise up. No, you got to have poor people. You got to have the guy who scrubs the toilets, and you got to have the guy who fixes the plumbing, and you got to have the guy who flips the burgers, and you got to have the janitor guy, and you got to have the garbage pickup guy, and you got to have, because if everybody was rich and well-to-do and in good standing, and getting all this good stuff, well, then there would be nobody to do the hard.
No. That's not true at all. I think what Jesus had was once a week, everyone would get together, high and low, and have a buffet. So those with more could bring more. Those with less could bring what they had, but everyone have an equal meal. So at least once a week, everyone would eat well, at least once a week. That's what I had learned from the beginning, which is the original Christians weren't were run by women in the hearth, in the kitchens, where everyone would bring what they had, and they would have a meal at least once a week, a healthy meal once a week. And there was never anyone, oh, you couldn't bring enough? You bring what you had, even if that meant just bringing yourself. And they would talk about just being good to each other. And then they would go on their ways and just do their normal lives and work hard or be rich. That's what I got. And then, of course, the Romans said, these guys are too happy. The rich with the poor, all working together once a week. We can't have this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That was a
Or it's
big
a good
thing.
story. I don't know. At least, or it could be just a good story that I heard. That's it.
Yeah, because if you stepped on the Romans' feet, they didn't like any, overdoing or underdoing of their rule. They wanted to be supreme. You can do whatever you want, but if you're undermining them, they didn't like that too much.
If you think about it, the Romans had the Colosseum so that they could feed the poor. So the poor were like, okay, you come to the Colosseum, have some entertainment, which was murdering people, and here's some free bread. Now, if you have the Christians getting together once a week, not going to the Colosseum, feeding each other, being happy, the high and the low working together, it really undermines the government handout system.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That it does.
Therefore, the government control.
Yep. Government control. You don't want to undermine the government. Heaven forbid. Well, anyway, Grandpa Brian, what do you say to all this? What's your take on some of these things?
They're all stories, whether they're true or not. I do not know because I wasn't alive when all these stories happened. So they're written by man, so you just take it for what it is.
Very well said. Yeah, take it for what it is. There's probably some good meaning in it, but you can't base your life on that story.
Correct.
Because it is story. And much as people have researched it, we're just skimming the top and reading other people's information. But, people spent lifetimes of working at trying to make sense of all this, and they're still working at it. If it was so true and hard fact true, there would be tons of evidence, tons of people wrote books about it. It would have been, recorded today in 10 different languages already back then. And then we could refer other books like, that book over there and this book over here, and we'll put them together. No. That's all in one book, and that's the only one you can read.
Yeah. If his birth was so important, why wasn't it written in all four Gospels, not just two?
Yeah, and why weren't there more Gospels that, what those guys that he had running around with him, the apostles or whatever, they didn't know how, only 4 of them could write? What do you mean only 4 of them could write? Come on. It's like you got 12, you only picked 4 to put in the Bible, with the other ones really, and the 4 that they put in the Bible basically talk about the same thing to each other. They're referring about what that guy said. Well, okay, I get that part, but you only could find 4 of them that wrote anything.
Well, when he was around, no one really wrote anything. Nothing was written until after 100 years from his crucifixion. So it was stories that were handed down and handed down and handed down, and finally someone said, we need to start writing this down. And by then, that story could have been changed 5 times before they even first started writing it down.
I always make the joke of, when it says Jesus said blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, what? Did he have a secretary running around behind him taking shorthand or something? Come on, they didn't have tape recorders. So, I always think of the Fred Flintstone thing, or the guys in there. He's saying what? Chipping away the stone, making, what do you mean? And it's like, because the words written in red are what Jesus actually said. And I'm thinking, No, that's just what made the story, because nobody knows what Jesus said after 100 years.
Yeah.
It's, it
Make
just,
sure you write this down. I'm saying something important.
yes, exactly. He came into the building and there was three guys there, and one of them was taking notes. Oh, that's Jesus. I better write it down quick.
Yeah.
Might be worth something someday. Anyway, all right, Lucky, what's the last take on this? And we're gonna.
It goes down to what we really talked about: the Sacred Heart of Jesus and Mary. Inside of you is the compassionate truth. You can read these stories, but in your heart, in your compassionate heart, you know what's right and what's true, and that's all that really matters.
Yes.
And it's simply put, just you know the right thing. You read it, and if it contradicts what you believe, it's okay. Let it go. If it's okay, if you aligns with what you believe, it's okay. It's yours. That makes life much more simple.
Yes, resonates with you, go with it, because like I said, there's you don't like that what that guy says, find another one. There's a bunch of them out there, and one way or another, you're going to find one that resonates with you and that works with your life. And being young, like all of us were at one point in time, having the Catholic religion forced down our throats, if we wanted to or not. Now we're older and we can make our own choices. And I think maybe people should follow that. Maybe the young children shouldn't have religion until they're older to make up their minds. Maybe that's
true. Yeah, that's
backwards. That's true. Will it happen? Probably not. But for that, anyway, join me and Nina the Mystic tomorrow night for more Horns of the Goddess on Nina's channel. Go right on over. Here's the link for tomorrow night, and we'll be doing that at 8 o'clock Central Time. I think it's 5 o'clock Pacific Time or 6 o'clock. I can't get the 6 and 9. No, I don't remember. But anyway, I know it's 8 o'clock Central Time. You figure out your own time zone. But anyway. And if you want, after this show, go over to Max Vision Remote View class. He was in chat earlier. And go over and do some muscle mind work. I know the other night I was over there, and my first hit was the best hit. I did the thing, and he put out the number, and I sat down, and I wrote a bunch of stuff on my little notepad here. And I said, it's a garden with a white picket fence. And sure enough, it looked like a garden with a white picket fence. I was darn tooting on top of that. And I've done that a few times, and it really makes me feel good. So go over there and enjoy yourself. He does a nice show. He's probably just getting going now. He starts at 10, so he's probably got his first thing up there, and you can catch him right away. But anyway, join me tomorrow night. Nina says it's 6 Pacific Time, 9 Eastern Standard Time, and 8 Central Time. So be there or be a square. Right there it is. And remember, we're going to have a lot of good shows coming up. We got Native American Myths and Legends on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock with David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. We're going to be there. And then on Thursday, I will be on Ryder Lee's show with Nina the Mystic and who knows who else. But we'll be on Ryder Lee's. Join us there. It's going to be an exciting time. So with that, remember, everybody, go out, do something nice for yourself, and then something nice for somebody else. But make sure that you treat yourself good. And like Lucky said, this is a depressing time of the year, didn't you? Winters kind of gets people down. So don't let yourself get down. Be happy and cheery. And, by doing something for yourself. If you have to buy yourself a Christmas present, then just do it. But then go out and do something nice for somebody else. Thank you, Grandpa Brian, for joining us tonight. It was a real honor to have you on. Thank you. Stay up
Thank
late.
you for having me.
Yes. You out there deer hunting? Did you go deer hunting?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be getting up at 5:30 in the morning. Should be out there about 6:45, sitting in the woods.
Well, good for you. I hope you get one.
I hope I do too.
All right. Well, good review. Thank you, Lucky. We'll see you soon. And remember, join Lucky with Courtney. I think you guys are on at 8 o'clock on Fridays now. Doing
8
the
o'clock
esoteric tea.
Eastern and 7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Mountain, 5 o'clock Pacific. How's that?
That's right. Good enough. Esoteric tea. It was a good show. I really enjoyed that. That was quite the good show to watch.
Honestly, it's just stream of consciousness show. It's basically just talk about stuff. We have a plan, but then that goes off the rails pretty quickly.
It was a good chat. I really enjoyed it. So go join Lucky there. And with that, everybody, remember, go out and be the frequency you want to receive. Love you all. Peace, everybody.